let's start with why this is important. Because I know many people who will watch this will think, I'm not a rational person. I'm an emotional person. And why should I learn to think? And thinking is the cause of my problems. And I think too much and I overthink, and I have to stop that. I have to get in touch with myself. So this is already one form of biased thinking. And the form of biased thinking is as follows. It's what I call binary thinking. It's saying things are either black or white. I'm either rational or I'm emotional. And so I go from one extreme to the other. This happens often when we're put on one direction, such as being very rational, and we're told to ignore our emotions. And if you know me a bit, you know, I think I see exactly what happens when we do this, and it's not a very good idea to do it. So we ignore the emotions, then we think, well, if I go from this extreme and I want to, it doesn't work, I have to do the opposite extreme. And then we ping pong from one side to the other, go to the opposite extreme, which has some advantages and also has multiple disadvantages. This whole point, by the way, of comparing is something we'll get into later today. It's very important. So you go from one extreme to the other extreme. And if we think binary, we think, well, I have to choose one of the two extremes. I have to be either one or the other. I have to be rational or emotional. This is a binary choice, and it is not the case. What we can do is what I call decimal thinking, either put on a vertical scale or horizontal scale. If you have one extreme, which is purely rational, there's a lot of downside. If you have one extreme, which is purely emotional, there's a whole different package of problems that come along with that. Different advantages, different problems. What we can do is slide ourselves along the scale to find the point where we find the balance that works for us. At that point might change in time. There might be moments where we think, maybe I should be more rational on this point, or more emotional, or last time when I did it, I was too rational. I didn't follow my gut instinct. Okay, we adapt. Slide to the more emotional. And if the next time we're too emotional, not rational enough, then we slide more to the rational. And one of the issues we have with thinking is not that thinking as such and being rational and being mental and intellectual is the problem. It is that when we do it poorly. And we get this all the time. All of us get it all the time. You're probably familiar, and hopefully familiar, with cognitive biases. Daniel Kahneman won the Nobel Prize when he described cognitive biases with his late partner, whose name I forget, Sepsi, something like that, in the book Thinking Fast and Slow. They describe these cognitive biases, moments when we think we're being rational, but ultimately we're not. And if we're aware of the moments when we're just thinking badly, we can use the rationality to make better decisions and stop thinking as badly and stop sabotaging ourselves because we've been, let's say, infected by poor thought structures. I actually, in the middle of a pandemic, I like this idea of being infected by bad ideas because I see it all the time. I see so many people feel so much anger and resentment and frustration simply because they've been infected by bad ideas. And like if there's a viral infection, it takes some level of work to be able to balance this, to remove the infection, to clean things out. First of all, identify that you have an intruder in your mind, which is polluting things, polluting ideas, and then learn what to do with it to avoid continuing to suffer the pollution, which is, it's a tricky one. By the way, one of the giveaways is if we take on board somebody else's ideas, check if these people seem to be happy or seem to be angry. If they seem to be angry, it's possible that their anger is creating ideas that justifies the anger. So if we take on board the ideas, we're internalizing their anger, which has no place in us, and anger can give us courage and motivation to do something. Anger is a very bad analyst of what to do. If you saw the previous master classes, like I say about anger, we take the information and then we strategize. And to strategize well, we need to think clearly. So in the system I use, there are multiple components that are helpful, and each have their role. Emotions are unbelievably helpful. Emotions tell us how we feel about a situation. If we ignore it, we ignore what we're feeling, and then we basically put ourselves in toxic situations. Emotions are there to help us survive and then reward us through joy. But the other emotions, anger, sadness, fear, contempt, and disgust, are there to help us survive. Surprise is there to help us be aware that there might be something that's toxic, that's dangerous, that's bad for us, that we need to process. Surprise is a neutral one. So if we take on board emotions, we will be in a better position to make decisions because we're getting the information. If you think of a system, and I've seen this if you did my workshop, if you think of a system, you have an individual, you have all of the people around, you've got actions into the system, you've got reactions from the system, which give us information. The emotions tell us how we feel about it. But the component that's really important is the individual who is thinking. If the thinking is bad, then you'll make bad decisions. And the actions are polluted. The system is polluted because of the bad thinking. So we clear this out. We clear out the bad thinking. If the person doesn't listen to the emotions, then the system is polluted. So we clear that out also. We also clear that out. If the person acts in a certain way so that the system gives a biased response because people lie, because people want to please, because people are afraid, the system is polluted. All we're doing is removing the pollution. And this is the work I do is in part unblocking the emotions so we can listen to them. It's in part thinking more clearly, and it's helping people maintain a healthy ecosystem. And all we do is clear. All we do is clean. No shortcuts. Well, the shortcuts is removing pollution faster, and that's it. Any system, by the way, any method that claims to give you external advantages is introducing an external element into your system. There's always a price to pay for that. And usually it's a big, big price. All you want, everyone is capable of maintaining their ecosystem the right way on their own. And the support should be helping you grow and maintain your ecosystem. So this is what we're doing in this case. So regarding thinking, now we get into the thinking bit. Regarding thinking, one of the big problems people have is binary thinking. I just explained it before, either 0 or 1 instead of nuanced. It's like people saying, for example, I hate my job. That's very binary. You either hate it or love it, seriously. Which is, by the way, this is a form of thought control. Forcing someone to give a binary answer is a way of manipulating them. It's one thing to use it as persuasion and something else to use it as manipulation, and we see it all the time. Any movement that says you're either for us or against us is binary, is toxic, is manipulating, and is not helpful, because this is a very low resolution of the world. You can think of it as saying you take a photo, it's a nice full color photo, you convert it into black and white, and you've got many shades of gray. And you can convert that into either black or white. You're going to have a very poor resolution of the world. All the details will be washed out, all of it. Here you just have white walls. Maybe my eyes would be white. Everything else would be black. Hopefully my teeth would be white. Everything else would be black. So it's going to be a very poor resolution. We don't want this. This is not helpful for making good decisions. It can be helpful for caricatures, but then bring a higher resolution. So when it comes to thinking clearly, different professions have different advantages for different ways of thinking. We get trained when we study something. We get trained to think more clearly, to think using different tools. And if we can learn from different professions, then our thinking improves. I'm just remembering, incidentally, for people watching this live on Facebook, I'm not seeing your comments. I'm very, very sorry. I'm not seeing your comments. I wish I were, because I love interacting. So if you want to leave a comment in the live, then I will get back to you. Yeah, please leave a comment in the live. Please, if you've got any questions, shoot me a message. You can do it on Facebook. You can find my all of my social media. Instagram, that's Ribersson. And actually, I will just adjust this. Here we go. I just do it on my, there we go, rename. Just bear with me 1 second. I don't know if you're seeing my name on the video, but this might be helpful for some people. So thank you. There we go. Okay, that should be renamed. Great. Back to this. Different professions have different advantages and different disadvantages. And what happens when we encounter a different form of logic is usually some form of cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is what typically will happen, and I'm simplifying a bit, typically will happen when we have a certain vision of the world and something comes along and shows us that the vision of the world isn't accurate, or we have a certain vision of the world, a vision of how we are, and then something shows us that we're not behaving in accordance with our vision of the world, which means we should revise it or just accept, well, I'm not 100% coherent. I'm a bit of a hypocrite sometimes, like every other human being. So it's sort of okay. And this is where, by the way, sliding scale is helpful. Are you a hypocrite or not? That's a very, very manipulative question. A bit. Of course I'm a bit of a hypocrite. As little as possible. Which is true. It's what I do. People ask me, do you lie? As little as possible. And if I'm aware of it, I try to lie less. And I probably lie without realizing it, and it's not what I want. But do I lie? Yes or no? It's like more than none is not helpful. Another good way of reframing things. More than none, less than all. This is a very important tool. I use it all the time. And this is going to be a big part of the workshop on thinking clearly, the sliding scale. So back to this. Thinking differently. There's one profession that teaches many tools for thinking really well on some topics. And if you haven't gone through it, if you don't understand it, it's very difficult to understand. Of course, you don't understand, it's very difficult to understand. If you're not used to the logic, it's very difficult to have conversations with these people because we have a certain vision of the world, they have another one, and comparing the two is really complicated. And one of these that I'm thinking of now is economics, being an economist. Economists tend to be quite good at taking data sets, analyzing data sets, seeing pros, seeing cons for various possibilities, and then trying to decide which has got the best trade-off, the best cost-benefit relationship between the two, or the three, or the four, or the five. Trying to understand which project seems to make the most sense and why. It seldom is one that one project is bad, another one is good. Anyone who's thinking that way is engaging in what this cartoonist, Scott Adams, who writes about this, what he calls loser think. It's too simplistic. It's too binary. Economists are well trained for this. My training is as a political scientist, so there's a bit of an overlap, but I used to struggle when I talk with economists about some things because we'd been injected with notions of what is morally right or morally wrong. And anyone who's walking into something with what is morally right, morally wrong, is only taking one fact into account, is being very normative, and it's not helping them make the best decisions possible. Of course, it's a factor to be taken into account, but to reduce everything to one factor in an analysis is making a very poor analysis that doesn't help assess properly the benefits versus the costs. It only takes one factor. It doesn't take multiple factors. It doesn't weight the different factors. I'll give you an example. Imagine you've got two projects for developing a business. One of them will provide jobs for 1,000 people, and there'll be a certain level of pollution involved. Another one will provide jobs for 10 people, and the pollution level will be much lower. Which is the best? You have to see the trade-offs. It depends on the level of pollution. If the level of pollution is mildly higher for the big one, we can accept a higher level of pollution being a worthwhile trade-off, even though we don't like pollution. One of the loser think approaches to this would say, well, you think pollution is good if you're willing to accept the trade-offs. It's not the case. It's not that it's good, it's that it's an acceptable trade-off, an acceptable cost. So how do we determine this? We can talk about it. But some people will be thinking any level of pollution is bad. And it's true. It is true. Any level of pollution is bad. But when we get to compare different scales of bad versus the benefits and the trade-offs. You can say environmentally, more pollution is really bad. It's true. It is true. You can also say when more people reach a certain level of income, they tend to favor more environmental solutions and therefore they will pollute less. So maybe there's a trade-off, maybe not. You'd have to see the details. And you can take all the factors into account and say, nonetheless, I overweight the pollution factor. So I'd rather have the small project and have the other 990 people not earning money rather than have more pollution. And that's fine. This is a conversation about the elements of the thinking which leads to a logical conclusion, which can be different depending on our weighting. So we can have a conversation about this. This is typically how economists and engineers will think. How most of us will think is more along the lines of, there are a few possibilities. I like one of them. Therefore, I will focus on the benefits of the one I like, and I will focus on the costs of the ones I don't like to try to get rid of them and try to push my project through. And I won't listen to the benefits of the ones I don't like, and I won't pay attention to the cost of the one that I like, because I've already made up my mind. I explained this in the workshop on psychology, understanding ourselves. This is basically our elephant that has made up its mind, and the rider tries to rationalize and justify afterwards. That's how most of us work. Probably 90% of the time, people function this way and think this way and act this way. That's nothing surprising. It's just not an effective way of making decisions. If you walk into a conversation, like I've done multiple times, assuming that people understand how to compare things, and they're not understanding how to compare things, there's usually a huge clash where the logic is lacking. And when we're aware of this, it's easier to take a step back and phrase things in a way where the other person can understand and can hear. Bearing in mind that many people, when they feel some form of cognitive dissonance, will have a very strong negative reaction. So this is about dosing things and being clear. But if we can understand this, we stay out of useless arguments. It happens so often. People attacking each other, fighting each other, when basically they disagree on the outcome, but they agree on 90% of the analysis. And they're just a few factors they weight differently, which leads to a different outcome. And they could go, well, I weight things differently, but I understand how you get to your conclusion. Instead, it's, if we have different conclusions, we have different values. And therefore, if the world is divided into good people and bad people, I must be a good person because it's me. And you must be a bad person because I'm the good person and we disagree. So anyone who disagrees with the good person is a bad person. So if you're a bad person, I'll attack you as being a bad person because I need to defend myself as a good person because you're attacking me as a person. What I prefer to do, I don't think this is helpful. I don't think attacking people in any situation helps. What I prefer to do is separate the person from the ideas. And we talk about the ideas. We talk about the ideas, we're curious, we look to understand. We look to create a steel man argument instead of a straw man argument. The steel man argument is the one where you explain to me what you think. And whether I agree or not, I'm able to say something along the lines of, it seems that what you think is X, Y, Z. And I say it in a way where you say, that's right. You've understood me. That is exactly what I'm thinking. Or you can give some precisions to say, yeah, it's more or less right. How about this? And I can see the internal logic of what you're thinking. And then I can say specifically, these are the elements I disagree with. But I see your logic, and I'm not trying to change your logic, and we're having a conversation about specifically elements and ideas, as opposed to you and your value as a person. The straw man argument is when someone says, for example, I believe that the trade-off of building a bigger factory, which increases pollution by 10%, but creates twice as many jobs, I believe it's an acceptable trade-off. And someone says, what, so you want to burn down the Amazon forest? Like you don't care about nature? You want us to go extinct? You think pollution is good? You see the way that people can be talking at cross purposes on different levels, and it's not helpful. It also makes sense if we focus on the trade-off. You want more pollution, therefore you think pollution is okay. That is a form of loser think, because it's not what the person is saying. If we say it this way, if the person says, yeah, that's right, okay. But the person is more likely to go, that's not what I think at all. You're confusing me. I'm trying to work through my own logic and express it to you. And the way you portray me is not at all what I think. It doesn't do justice to my thinking, and I don't agree with it in the first place. So, this is, by the way, with something like this, it's about comparing benefits and costs between different projects. Another form of bad thinking when it comes to comparing is comparing something that exists to something that doesn't exist. Such as saying, you have a proposal for building let's take this example, building a factory that creates 1,000 jobs and pollutes a bit. I don't know how to count the units, but let's say gives 10 units of pollution. So that's 1 unit for every 100 jobs. This is a bad project compared to a project that would create 1 million jobs and have 0 units of pollution. But that project doesn't exist. But yeah, well, compared to that, yours is a very bad project. But we need to compare to something tangible. This, incidentally, is something I see time and time again in relationships. People going, this person that I like is a bad match, is not the right person for me. Okay, compared to what? Well, compared to the perfect person. Okay, where is he or where is she? Well, in my mind, I'm looking for someone who doesn't have the disadvantages. Okay, but tangibly, if you take 1,000 people that you're attracted to, you actually take 1,000 people and see who you're attracted to. Let's take 1,000 people are attracted to. Which of those ones, first of all, gives you a better benefit cost ratio compared to this one, and also likes you? And then the cost benefit ratio, this is very rational. But generally, when it comes to this, is going, you've got the cost benefit ratio, but do you like them, really? You might mentally like them. You might convince yourself you like them. How do you feel about it? Like, do you really project yourself? How will it work out? When you see the person's cost benefit ratio, I'm using this with quotation marks because it's using that for humans is a very weird concept. I get into this either later or in another masterclass about relationships. But so we can see it on paper. This is one thing. We see it on the person. But then what about the relationship we can build? Because the person might have the most amazing cost-benefit ratio on paper, but we don't get along. That's really, in a relationship, what we want to do is see you and me. How do we match? How can we get along? Are the dynamics right? On paper, we might be perfect for each other. But if it doesn't gel, it doesn't gel, and that's it. And then it's just realizing, well, you correspond to what I think I've been looking for. But then when we put together, it doesn't work out, which is fine. The only way to find out is to see the energy and dynamics and see how that works. And then also think, well, if it's not working out, what is it? Where do I have flexibility? How can I change things? People might be, I've seen this often, going, my relationship is a big problem compared to a relationship that has no problem. Give me an example of one. It can't. So you're comparing it to something that doesn't exist. This is one of the points, incidentally, with comparing. We often compare ourselves to other people today where we only see the benefits they have. We don't see the cost. So we're hallucinating their reality. I can compare myself to so many people I see driving around with a Lamborghini, with the amazing lifestyle and all of that. I don't know what price they've been paying. I don't know how their relationship with their parents are, where the family is, the levels of happiness, all of those things. I could compare myself to this, and then I'd probably be miserable because I'm always comparing myself. We're always comparing ourselves to people who are higher up than us. It's like if you walk up a mountain, you see the people ahead of you. You don't know what the starting point was. You don't know how they got there. And their journey is their journey. If they get higher up, good for them. Good for them. Great. Happy for them. My journey is my journey. So instead of comparing ourselves to other people where we don't see the cost, the best thing we can do is compare ourselves to who we were yesterday. Am I making progress? Am I moving forward? My journey is my journey. If we do that, we start having a huge change of mindset. Instead of comparing ourselves to perfection, if my journey was perfect, this would happen. Okay, it's not perfect. No one's journey is perfect. Instead of comparing ourselves to perfection, how were we yesterday? Are we reducing the gap between where we are and perfection? Assuming that we never reach perfection, because we're humans, so we're not supposed to. We're supposed to reduce the gap. If I'm reducing it and I get 10% of the way, I can say it's not much. That's 10. It's more than it's 100% more than 5%. It's more than nothing. I've done something better, and that's a lot. Getting to do something better is really a lot. When we compare, what is the baseline? Comparing to 100%, forget about it. Compare to where you started and see how you're making progress. This makes life easier for ourselves. We're kinder with ourselves. We're more constructive, more productive. We enjoy life much more. And if we remember how things were before, life becomes much easier. And worth comparing, by the way, here's a question. 25-degree water, is it warm or is it cold? Depends what we're comparing it to. If you were in 15-degree water, you get into 25-degree water and it seems really warm. And if you were in 35-degree water, you get into 25-degree water and it seems really cold. And then you compare. Here in Dubai, an 18-degree day seems really cold. Well, maybe go and spend a few days in Vladivostok where you're probably having minus 30 degrees and then come and compare. But we get used to a certain new baseline. Our baselines change, and then we compare to either that, what we used to, or to other things we see. When we compare to others, always, always, always remember, we see the benefit, we don't see the cost. We don't know what price people are paying. And their price is their price. Ours is ours. We get to choose what works for us. We get to be inspired. That's great. Remember, there's always a hidden cost. It's like the iceberg thing. You got the tip of the iceberg. There's all of the cost that's underneath. We don't see it. And we shouldn't be sure that other people's lives are easier, first of all. Secondly, the capacity to learn from our mistakes or to learn from our path is massive. So whatever challenges and costs we've had has helped us learn and grow as people. If we didn't have this, we'd be more powerless, more naive, less useful to other humans. We'd have less empathy. We wouldn't have grown as much. Would we really want to be the old versions of ourselves? Maybe. But what would the cost be? It probably would be a big one. And we're not sure that we'll be willing to pay the price. I think I had a few other points. So yeah, with economists, I was saying economists weigh, when they take a decision, they see all the factors, they weigh all the factors, and then they decide. And normal people, normal mortals like us, we focus on the cost of the decision that we don't like, and we try to justify the decision that we do like. The way we do that is we ignore the costs of the decision we like, and we focus on the costs of the ones we don't like. We ignore the benefits, and we assume anyone who brings nuance of going, it's not that bad. Anyone who brings nuance is a bad person because they want something we don't want. This is low resolution thinking. This is like the black and white thinking. It's not helpful. And the two ways, by the way, of handling disagreement, one way is focusing on the variable that makes us disagree, of saying, well, you see things this way, let's talk about it and have a conversation. And the other one is attacking people who disagree with us. So you come to a different conclusion, I will attack you personally because you have come to a different conclusion. It's a strong form of manipulation, strong form of mind control, but it doesn't help clear thinking. So by my book, it's not helpful. Now, all of this, incidentally, to put into context, these things I'm talking about and I'm teaching, you can go, okay, I heard it, I've understood it. Practicing it is very different. It's like if I take a piano and I show you which keys to play a melody, and you know which keys to play, and you've got the partition, but you've never played a piano in your life. Or I do it with, there we go, with an electric guitar. I can show you how to play. I can show you where to press the frets, where to move your fingers. I can show you how I do it. If you've never played, the likelihood is that you won't play as well as me immediately, and it will take a lot of practice to get there. Because I've been doing it for longer than since, what is it, 92, I think I calculated, 92, no, since 93. It's been a long time. It's a rather scary statistic. It's been a long time. So I should be doing pretty well. Now, I've seen kids who are 12 and they've been playing for 4 years and they probably play better than I do, but, you know, good for them. Very happy for them. With these skills, practice is important. A mistake we make is to think, I'm rational, other people are not. I know better. I have the solutions. I'm thinking clearly. And anyone who disagrees has got some kind of faulty thinking in their head. Maybe this isn't the case. Maybe our own thinking is a bit fuzzy. Maybe being aware that fuzzy thinking exists and loser thinking exists and cognitive biases exist is one step, and then we practice. We practice all the time with people. We observe them. We listen to them. We try to see to what extent any of the things I'm describing are relevant, and then we see how it applies to different fields in our life. So you can do it with your job. If you say you dislike your job, rate it between 0 and 10. See how much you rate it at. Probably it's not 0, so there's some things you like. So start analyzing this. If you see it with relationships, romantic partners, you can rate different things of how much you like someone, what the potential is. You can list the fears that you have. And you can also list the hopes, and you can start seeing the trade-off and what is the risk, and are you willing to take the risk? If you want to compare, it's one thing to go, for example, I meet someone, this person seems really nice, but I'm a bit afraid. So maybe I'll just step back and I'll let the opportunity go by. It's a bit like when you're surfing, you're waiting for a wave isn't quite perfect. You don't know when another good opportunity is going to show up. You don't know what the chemistry is like. And so maybe it's a good idea to find out. And finding out can happen rather quickly. Again, it depends what we're comparing. We might think this other person seems perfect, but we don't know what the chemistry is like. The person might be perfect, but maybe not for us. And if the person is perfect for us, what we can do is, if the person is perfect for us, we can communicate and we can move forward and we can sort out problems. In a healthy relationship, it's what people do. It's not having no problems. That's not a healthy relationship. It's being able to find solutions to problems and work together as a team. And this depends on the connection. So when we compare, one thing is to compare the other person as a standalone. Something else is to project ourselves in the relationship with that person and compare that state of mind with being in a relationship with another person, or not being in a relationship at all, or thinking, now's not the right time, but maybe in a few years. Yeah, maybe. Maybe it's going to be fine. Maybe. And maybe it's the right time to just project and see the chemistry. And the only person who knows is us. And as long as we move forward without fear, then everything is good. Right. I think I've covered quite a bit. I see timer. We're at about 40 minutes. So this is an introduction to the full workshop I'm giving on thinking clearly, fuzzy thinking, loser think, cognitive biases, and being aware of them so we can avoid it. These are mental tools that I've learned from multiple places. Some I've taken and developed more, like the binary decimal. I've developed a lot because I see how useful it is. My goal for the workshop is to provide you with some key tools that help you think more clearly, stop the fuzzy thinking, the loser think, help you, the mental part of your system be clearer, remove the pollution from it. If we can stop polluting our system, we get a better result. I take the example, I like this metaphor, that your life is like a pond. It's an ecosystem. And you want it to be clean and healthy because you've got little fish and little frogs and little plants and flowers and fireflies, and it's really cute. You want it to be really healthy. If people use your pond as a toilet, it won't be healthy. If you use your pond as a toilet, it won't be healthy. If you think about it the wrong way, it won't be healthy. So what we want to do is we want to clear out the pollution in terms of thinking, in terms of behavior, so your pond is super healthy. And for example, with the comparing, imagine that your neighbor has got a healthier, more beautiful, bigger pond with more fish, and you sit there complaining all the time and thinking life is really unfair. And why does this neighbor have all of these things and you don't? You can do it. But if you can do it, we can do it. If we do that, how are our fish feeling? Maybe they need a bit of love so they can have babies and have more fish. And maybe if we took better care of them, they would grow and things would get better. It depends what we want. We can feel resentful. Of course we can. That's really easy. Or we can try to make decisions to improve things. If we think more clearly, it's easier to make the decisions. Then if we act in a smart way, we should be getting better results. And when we listen to the feedback, for example, a fish dies, what do? We shut off emotion so we don't feel the sadness. That's one option. But then we're likely to put our fingers in our ears, close our eyes, and try to ignore the signals we're getting. Or we feel really sad. And if we feel really sad, maybe we take better care of our fish in the future, better care of our pond in the future. And whatever it might be, if you lose a pencil and you feel really sad, you can go, it's just a pencil. But if you feel some form of sadness because you liked it and you spent time buying it and, a small level, you go, maybe I should be a bit more careful with my stuff. Because maybe it's better to lose a pencil than to lose a guitar, or break a guitar, something like that. Some form of sadness is helpful when it comes. Or whenever it comes, we shouldn't be filtering it out, or we don't get the information. If we accept it, take it on board, get the information, we can move forward. And there we go. Maybe the last thought, because I was talking about practicing. If you meet someone who's a black belt in martial arts, black belt in karate, and you decide to enter the ring and fight against them, and your experience with martial arts has been watching Bruce Lee movies and reading a book, I'm pretty confident betting that the martial arts specialist is going to win that fight. Pretty confident. If you've been spending more time practicing, taking on board the techniques, learning the techniques, and so on, then I wouldn't be so sure. Because the other person has practiced, has increased their level. Hopefully you found a few, maybe a lot, but a few helpful pieces of information and thoughts here. I'd recommend, as always, that you write it down. Write down the ideas that you think are relevant or that you disagree with, or anything that you think is stupid. You can, of course, leave a comment. But if we write things down, we tend to remember them better. And we tend to have more walkaways, more takeaways that will be more helpful for us. I suggest writing it down, think about it. If you disagree, let me know. If you think of someone who'd benefit from this, then please let them know. Please do share. If you look on various social media, you will be seeing a lot of social media possibilities to subscribe. As you probably know with social media, if you like, subscribe, comment, this is pushing, it's telling the algorithm that this is valuable content. Any push like that is, of course, helpful for, well, it's rewarding for me, which is, it's a nice feedback to get. it's also rewarding to hear if anything was helpful. It's really nice. It's very motivating, encouraging, and it helps other people find the content. So if you think it can be valuable for other people, it's a nice way to do it. You'll see me on my YouTube channel. I have a podcast that I'll upload a few more episodes soon. I'll upload this onto the podcast also. YouTube channel, podcast, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of the regular. So if you want to follow me, found this was helpful, then I'd be happy to have you follow me. And if you thought it was a waste of your time, then happy to listen to what I could have done better, and for you to let me know. So I wish you a very good day. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope there were some elements that spoke to you. And yes, I hope to see you soon. Oh, and the workshop is going to be this Friday, all day at Just Be in UAE. From 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. There's going to be 6 hours of this, working through these blockages, biases, loser think, tools, how to avoid it, how to think more clearly. It's going to be very condensed. So, of course, years of experience, many books I've read, condensed in a way that hopefully is easy to take on board, easy to understand, easy to just understand, explain, see through, and we'll work through concrete examples to see how the tools are used. The goal is that we do a huge switch in mindset in a day. If you are concerned about coming because of COVID, we'll do it on Zoom. Okay, doing everything on Zoom is an option. We can do a mix between in-person and on Zoom. So if that's the case, let me know. Let's just be know. We'll work something out. If this is valuable for you, and if, by the way, if Friday is not the right time, whatever it might be, let us know. It's important to get the ideas out there. During a pandemic, during a global pandemic, we need more clear thinking. We need less fuzzy thinking. We need more people getting together and stop fighting each other because we've been polluted by bad ideas that separate us. And I want to share a lot of these ideas that help us communicate better, be heard, be understood, express our ideas, understand others, communicate more efficiently. This is good for business. This is good for ourselves, understanding ourselves. It's good for relationships. And we need more people in a happy place in their life. One way of doing this is removing the pollution from the mind. I could have called this actually depolluting the mind. There's a thought for next time. Thank you very much for joining. I wish you a wonderful day.